Hello, and welcome to Your Health Matters. I'm your host, Dr. Peter Hogenkamp, and today on the program, we are going to be discussing the unhealthy food choices out there that are masquerading as healthy food choices. You know, in this modern world, we live where every corner is loaded with a gas station or a convenience store where there's lots of unhealthy choices for us that are lurking there. In this modern world, where 2/3 of us are not at a healthy weight, in this modern world, where we're all looking for healthier choices. It turns out that it's very confusing that a lot of the supposedly healthy choices that we have out there are actually unhealthy. And there's a lot of reasons for this. Primary among them is the fact that a lot of these manufacturers realize that we're all looking for healthier choices, so they're trying to create things that appear to be healthier. And they know that in the final analysis, if we're looking at something or we're buying something that's healthy, but it doesn't really taste that good, we probably aren't going to go back to it. So a lot of these companies are trying to make their foods appear healthy, but they're actually not. That said, each of the 10 groups we're going to talk about today, there are healthier versions of some of these, despite the fact that the overall group is what I consider unhealthy. So it's going to be up to us to figure out which of these is good to use. And it's so important because these unhealthy choices lead directly to health consequences like obesity, heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, arthritis. I could go on and talk about all the health consequences that we are giving ourselves by eating unhealthy foods. So if we can figure out which foods are healthy, we can really improve our health, and that's what we're here trying to do on Your Health Matters with Dr. Peter Hogenkamp. All right, the first number one group is granola bars. I say this because as a doctor and a former athletic coach, I've seen the things that kids bring around with them as snacks. And so often you see moms or dads trying to put granola bars into a kid's lunchbox, or if they're going on a hike or whatever, just for some healthy food. And the truth of the matter is, this is number one on my list for a good reason. Most granola bars are simply cookies. That's it. They're cookies masquerading as something that's healthy. And before we get into an analysis of what makes a good granola bar, what makes a bad granola bar, I want to just do a quick primer on nutrition. It turns out that we are all nutritionists now based on the fact that everything that you eat has a nutritional analysis on this, on the side. People who are familiar with the program will know that I've said that many times, and it remains to be true. We need to look at that. But before we do, I want to just give you a quick primer on nutrition. There are 3 types of nutrition only. Everything that you eat is comprised of the 3 main food groups, and that is fat, protein, and carbohydrate. So let's talk about fat first. Back in the 90s, we went on the low-fat kick that started as a health crusade kind of thing. It turns out that the average American is 15 pounds heavier since this started. So that the low-fat kick does not work. I don't recommend the low-fat kick, which is not to say that fat is good for you. But the low-fat kick has led us to having too much carbohydrate, and carbohydrate is the number one enemy. So fat is brought into 4 subtypes, or broken down into 4 subtypes. The first is saturated fats. And saturated fats are not good for you. These are generally found in meat, dairy, and eggs. Monounsaturated fats are better fats for you. These are the so-called good fats found in avocados, seeds, and nuts. These monounsaturated fats will actually reduce your low-density lipoprotein, which is the so-called bad cholesterol. Polyunsaturated fats found in salmon, tuna, and sunflowers. Not only will these good fats reduce your bad cholesterol, or LDL, they'll actually increase your HDL, or good cholesterol. I refer to that as the happy cholesterol. The worst fats are the trans fats. These are made by hydrogenating liquid oils. And everybody, I think, in this day and age knows to avoid trans fats. The issue is they're hard to avoid. These are found in cookies, crackers, all kinds of processed foods, and they have significantly bad health effects. They are to be avoided at all costs. Protein. Protein is protein, but we tend to categorize protein by its source. So, the first source of protein is going to be animal proteins. That's just where we get the bulk of our proteins. And these would include protein from meat, for instance, steak, pork, chicken. Proteins from fish are excellent sources of protein, eggs, and then dairy. So those are your animal-based proteins. The next source of proteins is from plants. Now, I want you to take this with a grain of salt. As you'll note from the chart that's on the screen, it is far easier to get significant amounts of protein from animal-based protein, like meats and fish, than it is plants. You can get protein from plants. Ask any vegetarian. You certainly can do it. It's just harder to do. The amounts of proteins are less in plants. But the biggest source would be beans and lentils, nuts and seeds, whole grains, and then obviously soy. And then soy can be made into tofu and other soy products, which can be a great source of proteins for people that don't eat animal-based protein. The last source would be protein powders and supplements. Now, I'm generally not a supplement fan. My patients will know this. People who watch the show will know this. I almost always tell people to get your stuff, to get your nutrition, through food groups. But there are people who do have protein powders and supplements. I'm going to warn you that a lot of these things are laced with other things that you don't want to have, like caffeine or even steroids. I generally advocate people to stay away from those things. So the last source of protein or carbohydrates, of nutrition rather, is carbohydrate. Carbohydrate comes in three sources. There are simple carbohydrates such as sugars. And when I say sugars, I'm referring to all sugars, natural or otherwise. People will tell me all the time that they can eat all the apples they want because it's natural sugar. And I continue to tell them that because I went to medical school, when I was in college, I had to suffer through organic chemistry. And I mean suffer. It was a long slog. And one of the things I learned in organic chemistry is that all sugars are converted to glucose. Enzymatically in the body, it takes about a millisecond. So you can have all the honey or fructose you want, or lactose, all the other types of natural sugars that are out there, they're all converted into glucose. So sugar is sugar. Simple sugars are simple sugars. It does not matter that it comes from a natural source. We live here in Vermont, and I love maple syrup just like the rest of us, but it's sugar. It's sugar. It's glucose. That's all it is. And fructose, an apple, fructose gets converted to glucose. It's sugar. These things are sugars. They're simple sugars. Keep that in mind. The reason that everything gets converted into glucose is that that's what the body uses for fuel. So the body then has to convert everything else that it gets into its system into glucose. Body does not use fructose for fuel. It has to convert it to glucose. Starches. Starches are simply sugars that are connected in a long chain and to make a starch. It's a complex carbohydrate. What does the body do? The body simply breaks those bonds in between the simple sugars and it creates sugar. So when you eat pasta, which is a complex carbohydrate, it simply breaks it down into sugar. This happens very, very quickly. If you take a cracker and you put it in your mouth, you'll notice within a very short period of time, the enzymes that are in your saliva will break down the starch in the cracker and it will become very sweet. This happens in your stomach as well. These things are broken down into simple sugars. So eating starch or complex carbohydrates is simply eating sugar. I will tell you that in some cases it takes longer to do that. And so the glycemic index, which is how quickly your body, your blood sugar, your serum glucose, will increase, is different for various carbohydrates. That's what we call the glycemic index. Simple sugars, your blood sugar goes straight up. Complex carbohydrates rather, it'll go up like this, but it still goes up. The last subtype of carbohydrate is fiber. These are the best types of carbohydrate. These are not digestible. They're not converted into calories by the body. So we love fiber. Everybody talks about fiber, and that's good, because the fiber does not get digested as calories. So there's your primer on nutrition. The three types: protein, fat, carbohydrate, and the subtypes thereof. So now we're going to go back and talk about granola bars, now that we know a little bit of something about it. The first thing you should do when you look at a granola bar is read the label. And I'm not talking about the advertising. There's going to be lots of buzzwords for granola. They love to say things like natural, wholesome, real fruit, even gluten-free. All these things are there to lure you into buying this product, making you think that this product is healthy. As I mentioned, these are products that are masquerading as, these are unhealthy foods masquerading as healthy foods. But you are now a wise consumer. You're going to look at the label. And what do we want to look for? Well, we want to look for whole grains versus refined grains. Refined grains would be white flour and corn syrup, particularly high fructose corn syrup, not good. We want to look for nuts and seeds. We want to look for things that are low in added sugar. And we want to look at the amount of protein in them, we want to look at the amount of calories in them. I will say that the calories can be a little bit misleading because there are some granola or protein bars that are actually higher in calorie, but they're higher in calories because they have a lot of protein in them, and that's good. So it's better to look at this, the breakdown of the sugars and the proteins. That said, if a bar has 400 calories in it, it's still 400 calories. At the end of the day, your weight will go up or down based on a simple mathematical formula, which is the number of calories that you consume minus the number of calories you burn. If that is a product, if the product or the sum of that is positive, meaning that you're taking in more calories than you burn, you're going to gain weight. If it's negative, if here is burning or consuming calories and here is burning, you're going to lose weight. So in the final analysis, your weight is going to be a product of the number of calories that you take. So keep that in mind. So we like protein, we sure do. We don't like carbohydrates, but overall, if something's got a ton of calories in it, you want to be careful. This brings up portion size. A protein bar this big is bad for you. One this big is not going to be that bad for you. Portion sizes. You've got to be careful of this. Overall number of calories is the most important thing when it comes to determining whether you're going to gain or lose weight. So, I would say if you were looking at a protein bar, you want to have the following three things. You want to have at least 3 grams of fiber. When you see fiber, you can subtract the number of grams of fiber from the total number of grams of carbohydrate. Let's say a a particular bar has 15 grams of carbohydrate and it's got 5 grams of fiber. You then can subtract, so the net number of carbs for that particular bar is only 10, which isn't bad. As far as protein is concerned, you want at least 5 grams of protein. Now, I've eaten a variety of these things in my life, and I'm always looking for better ones. I have seen ones as high as 18 grams of protein. Keep in mind they tend to be fairly large. I've seen some with only 1 gram of protein. You want to be careful of those. Remember now, you don't want a granola bar that's just a dressed up cookie. You don't want a granola bar that's just that's a cookie masquerading as a granola bar. I think 150 calories or less is a good goal. That said, some of the better bars do have a few more calories than that because they have a lot more protein. The last thing to look at is the carb to fiber ratio. You want it to 10 to 1 or lower. 5 to 1 is better. So in other words, if you've got a bar with, let's say, 10 grams of carbs and it's got 5 grams of carbohydrate, well, that's only 2 to 1. That's ideal. That's hard to find. Better is approximately about 5 to 1. Anything 10 to 1 or higher than that is really, I would consider quite unhealthy. Last word on this, avoid the buzzwords and the marketing. Just because a product has nature in it or some other kind of nice buzzword like that doesn't mean it's healthy. All right, so we've done number 1 and 2, that's granola and protein bars. The next thing is yogurt. And yogurt, just like all the rest of the things we're going to talk about today, can be very good for you. It generally isn't. It generally is not. Most of the yogurt that Americans eat is very unhealthy. But there are a lot of healthy choices out there, and you can choose them. So, what makes a good yogurt? Well, it's very simple, and that's sugar. Or I should say, the lack thereof. Most of the yogurts that Americans buy are highly sweetened. And I know this, and I've learned this, because over the years, I've always loved yogurt. I've eaten a lot of it in my life, but over the years, we've refined our yogurt choices as I've gotten older and my metabolism has slowed down. I've had to make better choices in terms to keep my weight down, and I struggle just like all the rest of us, and I work at it. And I'm not embarrassed to say I work at my weight. I'm not embarrassed at all, and you shouldn't be either. You should continue to work on your weight because we live in a toxic environment that's loaded with calories and carbs out there. You have to work at it. All I'm trying to do here today is give you some of the tools that you're going to be using in this job. So, avoid sugar. I used to have this one yogurt. I'm not going to mention any brand names because that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying to, say one company's better than the next. I'm just trying to give you, in general, approaches to finding the healthier choices. But I used to love this yogurt, and I happened to have it at a hotel recently we were staying at, and I was amazed at how sweet it was. I've been eating non-sweetened yogurts now for so many years that I took one bite of this and it slapped me in the face. It slapped me in the face how sweet it was. And that's something I used to eat every day and didn't even notice. One of the things someone told me one time I thought was interesting is that the main difference one of the main differences between America and Europe is that they don't eat sweetened yogurts and we do. And I've spent a lot of time in Europe. I used to live there. And obviously I've lived here most of my life. And I will tell you that is actually true. When you go to Europe and you have a plain or unsweetened yogurt, you really notice the difference. That's because we're all eating these sweetened yogurts. That's what's advertised, that's what's pushed, but there are healthy choices out there. I now eat a yogurt which is high in protein, it's high in fat, and it's very, very low in carbohydrate. It's a plain yogurt, it's delicious. The fact that it has high protein and high fat content keeps me filled for a long time. So in the morning for breakfast, I do the same thing every single day. I eat a bowl of this plain, high fat, high protein yogurt with blueberries, and I put some wheat germ in it to increase the fiber. I don't add any honey. I used to add honey to it. Don't do that anymore. I find now that I don't even like, I've had this plain yogurt for so long, I don't even like the sweetness. Although, you know, maybe I'm kidding myself. The honey tastes great. But I'm trying to stay away from sugar. So there's a lot of good choices out there for yogurts. There's many more bad choices. Keep something in mind. Fat may not be all that bad. Remember now, there's good fats and bad fats. So you want to stay away from the trans fats. You want to stay away from the unsaturated fats for sure. But fat has the advantage that it satiates you, which means it keeps you from snacking all day. When I eat my yogurt in the morning, I'm going to go to lunch until I'm hungry. And if you eat a yogurt with a lot of sugar in it, remember I've talked about this before too, sugar goes up in your bloodstream, so the insulin goes up in your bloodstream and then the sugar goes down. As the insulin goes up, sugar goes down. All of a sudden your body's serum glucose goes down, and you know what that does? It makes you hungry. So you really want to avoid those sugars, you really do. Okay, the next candidate on my list is fruit juices. Now, fruit juices is the one thing we're talking about today that probably there are no good choices. Fruit juice is uncarbonated soda. End of story. I was talking to a diabetic one time, and he was telling me that he just got this continuous glucose monitor, which I love. Everyone should wear a continuous glucose monitor. You can buy one off the shelf. You don't need to be a diabetic to buy them. They are wonderful at training you how to eat. And he says, you know something? He says, I always thought orange juice was good for you. And then I noticed when I drink orange juice, my blood sugar went way up. And that's absolutely the case. It's got orange juice, it's got tons of fructose in it, immediately converted into glucose, blood sugar goes way up. I asked this person, what did I tell you to do if your sugar bottoms out? He goes, drink orange juice. I said, you're absolutely right, that's what I did. Because I know that's going to rescue your sugar as fast as anything else. Because it has so much sugar. It's readily available. It's absorbed quickly. It's the worst thing you can possibly drink. And I'm not just picking on oranges. I'm talking about all fruit juices. Tomato juice is another one that's out there that's just not good for you. They try to masquerade it as a health product. It's not. Tomato juice is not healthy. The one thing I will say that a lot of these tomato juice, fruit juice, a lot of these things they have a lot of vitamins and antioxidants. That's great, but there are healthier ways to obtain them. Since we're talking about fruit, let's go on to fruit snacks. This is another thing I used to see in lunch boxes and snack bags for kids coming to practice. And I thought to myself, the kid's here for practice for an hour. And, they barely let me make the kids run. And the mom's got, all these, got 1,000 calories in here. This kid's going to end up going to basketball practice and gain weight. And I just, it was a facepalm moment. These little roll-up fruit things, they're concentrated fruit products. They've taken the fiber out. They've taken the water out. It's concentrated sweets. These things are terrible for you. Do not buy them. They are not healthy. Not healthy. Fruit snacks, right out. They have a lot of sugar in them, as I mentioned, a lot of corn syrup. There's no fiber. Ask a diabetic what happens when they have a fruit snack. A lot of diabetics will take those along with them if they're concerned about sugar shock or sugar coma, because they're great, they're portable. This is a good role for them, actually. You're a diabetic, you're hiking, you've got no orange juice with you, but you've got these little fruit snacks with you. They're readily absorbed. These things are great for sugar shock or sugar coma. But for the average person looking for a healthy food, they're right out. This next one is going to be tough. And, I'm gonna give it to you with a grain of salt here, or without a grain of salt. Fruit can be very unhealthy. Fruit. I know we've talked about fruit. As a doctor, I ask my patients, how much fruit and vegetables they're eating. I have tended to convert that in the last 5 years. I'm asking them, what vegetables are they eating as opposed to fruit? Fruit can be healthy. it can also be very unhealthy as well. I mean, I realize that fruit is loaded with vitamins and minerals and antioxidants, but there are better ways to get those again. Fruit is high in sugar. It's why we like it. Ask a diabetic what happens when they eat fruit. I was talking to this one diabetic, again, he just gotten a continuous glucose monitor, and he came in and he was absolutely dumbfounded to report how high his sugar went after he ate grapes. And I said to him, you ever broken a grape open? He's like, yeah. He goes, what happens? He goes, well, your fingers get really sticky with the sugar. That's right. They get very sticky with the sugar because there's tons of sugar in them. Grapes are one of the top 3 bad ones. Bananas, grapes, and mangoes, which are all delicious, by the way. It pains me to say this, but they're very, very high in sugar. We need to be careful of these things. If you eat them, we want to be careful about quantity. Remember now, quantity is always the way we get a lot of calories. What healthy fruits are out there? I talk about this all the time. I'm going to give it to you straight. Blackberries, blueberries, and raspberries, not strawberries. Those 3 fruits are low in sugar, and they're still high in antioxidants, minerals, and vitamins. Those are your best 3 fruits: blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries. While we're on the subject of fruits and vegetables, there are a couple of vegetables that I tend to tell people to be careful of. And it basically boils down to 2 of them. That's sweet corn and tomatoes. These are very, very high in sugar, and we need to be careful. Ask a diabetic what happens after they have tomato sauce or have a tomato sandwich. There's a lot of sugar in there, and that pains me because I love tomatoes. Okay, sports drinks, I'm going to just don't drink them. We go back to that, my experience as being a 4th and 5th grade basketball coach, and these kids would come in for an hour practice with a sport drink with 250 calories from sugar. And I'm like, no, you only need to drink water. You only need to drink water. You don't need the sugar. You're there for an hour. You got plenty of calories in your body already. Drink water to hydrate. That's all you need. Okay, I want to finish up with snacks, just because I'm a snacker. I love snacks. I'm going to tell you that I don't ever think I've ever seen a potato chip masquerading as a healthy food, although there are now a lot like healthier choices, lower fat or lower salt potato chips. Let me just tell you something. Potato chips are right out. And it pains me to say that because kettle chips, my favorite thing on earth. Why are they bad? Because they have the unholy trinity, the unhealthy trinity, and that is fat, carbs, and salt. Just like pizza. It doesn't make anybody's diet list. It's got carbs, fat, and sugar. Carbs, fat, and salt. So, what are some supposedly healthier snacks masquerading as healthier ones? Pretzels. They'll come across with the buzzword no fat. That's because it's all carbohydrates and salt. Pretzels are not healthy. It's way, way too much carbohydrate. Popcorn. Oh, this is a tough one for me because, man, do I love popcorn. Sometimes my wife will go to bed and I'll sneak into the kitchen and pour some Whirl Red pour some popcorn into the thing, and I'll cook it up in some oil, just a tiny little bit of salt. So delicious. Tons of carbs. Bad for you. What are good snacks? Celery and carrots. What a great snack. Buy those little celery, stalks, cut them up, or they even come cut up. The little mini carrots that are fantastic. Those are great snacks. High in fiber, low in sugar, they're fantastic. If you don't like those, you want something else, nuts. Nuts are great snacks. But like everything else we talked about, they have some bad things about them. They can be unhealthy, especially if you eat too many. Remember now, it's calories we're looking for, and if you're eating a ton of nuts, you're going to get a ton of calories, and calories lead to weight gain. That said, nuts do have protein in them, they have fiber, they've got vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. They can also have salt, especially if you eat the processed nuts, which you want to stay away from. What nuts are good for you? Almonds, pistachios, walnuts, cashews, pecans, macadamia nuts, hazelnuts, and peanuts, which are actually legumes. Hey, thanks again. I hope you learned something today. It was wonderful to have you. Cheers.